Hi everyone and welcome to another Find and Create. This project begins here on the Dutch coastline with a spot of beachcombing. That piece of driftwood look really gnarly and
it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe put some candle holder things in it, some tea light things in it.
Nice.
There's another piece of it, a big flat piece. And a brick. Hang on, a brick. That'll be it.
Is it not?
Yeah, it's an old Dutch, like proper old brick. It's thought about it's kind of small, a bit irregular.
Yeah.
I think they're handmade, but I don't know enough about them. I think there's a handmade brick. They cut it all. Nice piece of wood here.
Was that, yeah?
Small
Is it
bits.
new or
It's old, isn't it?
nice.
That.
It's nice. Without
Smooth.
soft edges.
It's a good piece, isn't it?
Yes.
There's some more behind you on the floor down here. Small. Burnt.
I don't know.
Just so wet that it looks burnt.
Yeah. The structure is quite
Which is good, isn't it?
intriguing. Yeah.
It's tactile, isn't it? I think by the time that's dried out, oh, that's pretty dry now.
It's quite dry.
Not really. Will you use that for anything?
Probably.
Okay. Okay, so what I want to try and do is I bought this from a local accessory shop, and this is a decorative LED giant light bulb. And inside the glass here is a string which has lots and lots of tiny little LED bulbs in it. Very similar to this one that I also bought. So again, similar string, similar lights, and this one works from batteries. So I'm guessing that inside this little cap thing here there is something that converts mains electricity into the low voltage that these LED bulbs require. So the idea is going to be that I want to try and get rid of this glass. Now unfortunately it doesn't screw off or separate, so unfortunately we're going to have to go with the tile cutting machine. It might be a bit brutal, it might cause us problems, but we'll give it a go. Worst case scenario, we try again, we buy another one, we try again. So the idea is going to be, I'm going to cut this using this, but it won't quite fit that before it meets the glass. So we'll take this off, and then we can use the disc here to cut very carefully, like we do with the old bottles, along here, and remove this glass part, leaving this that we can use and the string of LEDs that we can operate from the mains electricity. One shot at this, one take, it either works or it doesn't. So we'll go with, we'll put this on first. I have to leave that up there, so I'm going to get covered in water, it doesn't matter. Obviously, water and electricity don't mix, so this is going to have to be thoroughly dried out. Some success, limited success there. It hasn't broken it, sorry, it hasn't cut it cleanly. It's left a break, but we can tidy that up with the machine. No damage to the LEDs. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's definitely a transformer inside there that's definitely reducing the voltage down. So that's the bit we need. So I'll carefully take these out of here and get rid of, you get lots and lots of bulbs, lots and lots and lots and lots of bulbs. Right, so we'll get rid of this bit. I'm going to try now and carefully tidy this bit of broken glass up here. As it was just too brutal for the very delicate light bulb glass, but we didn't need it, so it's not a big deal as long as we can use this part here. So again, I'll just turn this down and try and tidy this up a little bit. So all the glass is gone. I'm just left with the bits we need. So we'll let that thoroughly dry out, and then we can check it by seeing if we can put it into the bulb thing and switch it on and see if the LEDs still work. But again, it's got to be dry, got to be thoroughly dry. I'm totally aware of that. Okay, so next stage. So this has had 24 hours to dry out, so there's definitely no moisture in this element. I've put it into the lamp, just screws in, and I'll just switch the lamp on. There we go. Pretty little fairy lights. So it works, no problems, doesn't need the glass around it, and that gives me plenty of options. So one of the first things I want to do is to establish if these LED lights can be extended. What I hope to do is I want to have a bottle, a bottle, a bottle, a bottle, and only have LEDs in the bottles. The part that goes from bottle to bottle, I want to have normal wires. So I've got to make sure that we can definitely extend the LEDs. I don't see why not, but here's the first try. So what I've done is I've cut the last LED off the chain, and I've just soldered a couple of wires to the ends there. And I'm going to solder this one onto here. So again, we'll just take a bit of tape just to hold it in position, because they do get quite hot. So we'll put that on there like that. And I'll just take the soldering iron again, bit of solder, and we'll just blob that onto there. Not the prettiest soldering job, but as long as it holds, it doesn't matter. And the same again on this side. Give that a second to cool. Yeah, that's connected. So take that wire off, and now we'll just see if this lights up that one. Yep, it does. So now what we're going to do is the same on the gold LEDs, the ones that are going to be operated from the mains electricity. It should work, but we'll double check before we get too deeply into the project. So LEDs are plugged into the lamp, and extension one here. Let's focus on it. So we'll press the switch, and there we go. We've added an LED to the end of the string. The only problem is that, I don't know if you can see on camera, but this last one, and I'll just hold it up here, is a little bit of a different colour to the other ones. You could see that before on the other string. One's called warm white and one's called gold, and there is a difference. It's hard, my camera can't really focus because it doesn't know what it's doing, but you can probably see on there is a difference, and we don't want a difference. So that's the next conundrum. We might have to try and find some little LEDs in gold to match up with these, or buy another one of those bulbs and take the LEDs out of it. But good, it works. We can add to it, which is fantastic. So an update on a prototype version of what we're going to do is I've got this string lights with the battery pack attached. Now this battery pack is, it's got three 1.5 volt batteries, so therefore it's 4.5 volts to the fairy lights, to the LED lights. I've taken a old mobile phone charger. It's an old Ericsson mobile phone charger, and it's too small for you to see here, but the output of this is 4.9 volts. So I've stripped out the two wires, the positive and negative wires. So these are wires that are capable of carrying 4.5 volts, because it originally was 4.9. So we know that the wires are of a good enough size, and they're not going to get too hot, and they're also not going to sap energy because they're not kind of overkill. What I've done is I've just taken some other wires of a similar diameter, and I've wound them round some pins in a length of scrap wood, demonstrated here, and I've soldered the pins to the wire. So again, what I've done is I've taken some, the reason I've got this box of matches is I've melted off the insulation off the wire in certain places, wound it around those pins, and then I've soldered the wire to the pins. So the energy comes from here through these LED lights. They're attached to these two green wires here. Just move that, see, attached to there. They then run along this piece of wood, which represents our driftwood, to the end, and there's an LED on the end. Now the idea is that at every pair of posts, of pins, I will take off a lead of positive and negative from that, through a small hole in the driftwood, and then out into the bottles with a set of LED lights coming from that. So again, this drawing represents it, and there's just one soldered to the end at the moment. So if I switch on this LED light now here, a set of LEDs there, you can see all these are lit up, and into the wire, and then this one is lit up, which is the branch off there, which would light up all those, and so is the one right on the very end, which again would represent another branch. Now I can take as many branches as I need from this sort of reduction in the power output, not that we'd see anyway. So that's the prototype, it's working. So now I've got to do it to the main one, with the main piece of driftwood. The next thing I bought for the project is these. Again, the little LED bulbs in some fake light bulbs. So switch them on with the little battery pack, and you get the little LEDs in the bulbs. These are just plastic. Take one off here. So it's just moulded plastic. See the seam on it there. And then they just come into the cap with some LED, with 3 LEDs on the end. Doesn't show very well on this camera, but these LEDs are quite pink, so not the most attractive shade. But the thing I bought it for is these sort of old style ropes. So the little wire runs inside the rope down to the LED, and then onto the next one. So my idea is to use these ropes with the correct gauge of wire, obviously, so we can go from down to each bottle with a length of charming looking rope that carries the wires. So that's the reason I got this. So this is how these LED bulb things are constructed. There's the plastic glass bulb, the cap end, which has got hot glue inside, and so the rope part is hot glued to the metal, and then you've got 2 wires coming in, looped around, 2 wires going back out again. So and it's all held together with you can see the remnants of a tiny little cable tie, zip tie that I cut off, and then the hot glue. So I can just simply cut these here, and I've got myself the right gauge wire inside a nice sort of attractive looking old-fashioned rope, which I can take to the bottles. So the next issue is that these little old bottles would have probably had a glass bottle stopper in the top, and I want to put I've separated a piece of this braided wire off. So use this end. So this is going to go into here. Like this. I've just put a bit of silver tape on the end of the braided string to stop it from fraying. So that's going to go into here, and that's going to have obviously more than just these 3 LEDs on it. It's going to have several. But then the space in the top, including the rope, is quite small. Before I order some corks online, this is obviously a wine bottle cork, which is far too big for the top of this. But with this blade here, I'm going to see if I can shave this down to make a cork of the right diameter for that, and then see if I can drill a hole in the cork for the rope to go through. It might just be so thin walled that it'll disintegrate, but we'll see. We'll try that next. I drilled the hole through the cork to the right diameter, and I fed the LED wires through it. So that's the right size for that to go through the middle of. Now I've got to try and shave the cork down to that size and see if it'll still work. That's what we're down to. So I've got a little baby cork with a hole in the centre, which I'm now going to thread onto the rope wire. So that's it on the in the bottle with the rope attached. I've not pushed it all the way in because I'll never get it back out again. The LEDs are inside, so that's again another experiment which is going to work. I'm glad I drilled a hole in the cork before I shaved it down, because it definitely wouldn't have survived otherwise. So now we need to drink more wine and get more corks. There we are, wired from the battery pack to this wooden plinth that I did before, and then taken from there into the bottle with the cork. Just the 3 LEDs at the moment, but I will change that and make that like 10 or whatever we said before, 12, so that it looks nice and pretty. But there we go, the principle will work. Okay, so this is the gold LED bulbs on the mains sort of connector thing. So I don't mix these up once I've cut it. I'm going to put a little label on it just to remind me which ones are the gold ones, because it's very difficult to differentiate between the gold ones and the silver ones until you've got electricity in them. So I've put that on there, and now I can snip this. Just thinking about the best way to do this. Okay, I think we'll just cut it here for now, and we'll worry about that last LED later. So set that to one side, because that's the bit we really need. And now we've got a string of LEDs which I can now divide up to go into the bottles. There's 48 on this string here now. There would have been 50 originally. One was lost, or not lost, but one's still on the end of here. I could potentially use it still. And there's one that I took off the very end of this string to test this whole process in the first place. So there were 50 originally. 48, if you divide it by 12 LEDs, that'll give us 4 bottles. Like I said earlier on, I want there to be a good number of LEDs in the bottle, because I think the effect is better. So I'll move that one over there. I've got a string of the silver, or more silver LEDs here, and I've counted, if you can see here, I've counted 12, and I put a bit of black tape to the 12th LED, and I'll put them inside this bottle here, so you can see what it's going to look like. The difficulty with these is trying to get them in a kind of a nice pattern inside. It's difficult to control where they end up. So they're all curling down one side at the moment. Anyway, we'll worry about that detail later. But that's 12 in there now. And if I switch this on, and I'll lift this a little bit out of the way, whoops, so you get a less cluttered view of the situation. So that's what 12 bulbs will look like in the bottle, and I certainly don't think it wants to be less than that. For me, that would be less than that, and it wouldn't have a really sort of nice effect. It would be a bit sparse. Problem is, obviously, any more that we put in here, the less number of bottles we're going to get per string. Now, I only got 2 of those original light bulbs. So if I'm going to go gold, because these bulbs, it's hard to see on here, but these bulbs are a lot more brighter white colour. So if we're going to go gold LEDs, then we're limited to 8 bottles effectively. If we do want to do more, then I could potentially use the silver bulbs, but I'd have to paint them with nail varnish or something to try and make them more golden colour. So that's the thought process at the moment, and we'll try another bottle and see what it looks like with 12 in another bottle. So here's a couple of examples of the other bottles I want to use. So I'm going to test what the 12 LEDs will look like in these. So I'll pull that out of there, set that over there, put this in this smaller one. That's 12 in there, so we'll switch that on. So again, we'll lift this up so you get a less cluttered view. But I think that looks quite okay in there with 12 in that one. So obviously the smaller ones are better than the larger ones, but I do want some of the larger bottles. So I've got this other one here. Now this one is one of the chemist bottles, a 300 milliliter chemist bottles. Lovely bottles. I really like these. Now the other thing is, I'm not going to just feed them in. You watch this. Put them into there. But on these ropes I've already got, there are 3 extra LEDs on some of the ropes. Depends on where I cut them. So some ropes are just rope. Like here's one here that's just a rope, and it's just got a wire. But if it was on the return part of the string, then there's the LEDs that would have been inside these things. Now they're not the gold ones; these are the brighter white ones. But I think if I just do those in nail varnish and use those and the 12 on the other one and into there, so I think that extra 3, that 15, will give it a little bit better effect. So that's the decision we made on those. 12 in the smaller bottles and 15 in the larger bottles. So the next process is going to be to take some of this tape. I used this when I was doing that tiling project. It's really sticky, but it's see-through. So I'm going to take a little strip of this tape, not that much, and put it around the end of here to stop this from fraying. And then solder the 12 gold LEDs onto the end of this, and so with the cork already on there, and then that can go into the bottle and form, like before, one of the complete hanging bottles. So let's take some of this tape. So we'll just take a strip of this. Of course, we don't need much. Just wrap that around. So you can see, wrap that around there to stop it from fraying. So there's enough there for perhaps another twist on another piece of rope. The reason I use that, it's not just sellotape, as you saw. It's really sort of industrial stuff, so it's definitely not going to unravel itself if it gets a little bit warm in the bottle. I'm going to shave down the cork to the right diameter. Getting close. So there we go, that's shaved down sufficiently. It goes in there, and with a push it'll go in. So I'm using corks that are thoroughly dry. These corks have been in the kitchen drawer for weeks and weeks. Problem is, if you use a cork that's got any moisture in it, and then it shrinks. I don't want the bottles dropping off. So I've cut 12 of the little gold LEDs, which are going to go to this string here. Now the only thing is, spot deliberate mistake. I was showing you with this little bottle here, and we said that with small bottles there wouldn't be the extra 3 LEDs, there would just be the 12. Now fortunately, the larger chemist bottle has the same diameter top to it, so this little cork that I've made here for that bottle pushes into there quite nicely, so we don't need to make another cork. I've got this one to go in this one, and we can solder these, or this to this next. So one thing worth noting is that these little LEDs do have a positive and a negative side, and they don't tell you which it is. So this whole project could not work if I mismatch my positives and negatives when I solder them together. So I've got this one here, look, which is lit, and this string of 12 that I've cut off, and I need to know which one is which. So if I try touching that against there and that against there, you see how it creates the connection, and we get life on the gold ones. And if I switch it over and touch this on here and this on here, we don't get anything. Nothing at all. So what we're going to do now is I will solder together, double check the correct wires, obviously not onto these because these are the silver ones, but onto the string one. That's in there, it's not pushed right in, it's just in sort of for effect, halfway in. I've extended the effectively the ends of these with just a couple of fine wires, because there's no need for LEDs at that point. This is going to be going up into the wood, and if I connect these 2 wires, you'll see what the effect of the bulb of the bottle is then. So it's not those 2, it must be these 2. So connect that to that, there we go. So there we are. There's the chemist bottle with the bulbs in it hanging from the phony rope. Another bottle completed, and the process will be a lot easier and faster the more I make. But yeah, pleased with that. So what I've got to do now is to measure the piece of wood, and also take into account the rope which is going to attach the thing to the ceiling. So that's going to have to go towards the ends of the plank of wood, so it's got to be balanced up properly. And then the wiring's got to be done with the little pins for the terminals for each of the bottles. So I've just switched my attention to how I'm going to get the remnants of the light bulb, so the threaded part of the light bulb cap, integrated within the whole procedure in the driftwood, so that it is nice and neat and tidy. It doesn't stand out like a sore thumb, and is also sort of safe and kind of it's just functional. So what I've done is I've drilled a hole in just a random piece of wood that was being part of a sort of garden table for a while, so it's got that same coloration. I've just stained up the ends a little bit just to again, just to sort of keep it looking rustic. Now I've drilled a hole through, that goes into there. The wires come out the end, and then they can be folded over and soldered, so positive going one way and negative going the other. And then when it's on the wood itself, on the driftwood, it forms like a sort of a sandwich. Like I say, wires coming out there, wires coming out of there, it's secure. If I bond it, if I epoxy that inside, it won't go anywhere, and so it'll be. Bear in mind, you're going to be looking at it from above, or rather from below, so you're not going to see too much of this at sort of head height, and that's the sort of best solution. There's nothing I can do about the height of the overall thing, because if you take that out of there, look, there's that glass protector tube on here, which I kind of want to keep. It gives something solid for me to actually glue into there, so that's what that's for. So I'm going to glue that in there now and solder some red and some black wires to it. So the two parallel wires are nailed or pinned into the wood and soldered in position, and then they're jointed, or they'll be jointed here where the bulb holder with the reducer goes, and obviously the same the other end. Next job is going to be to drill holes in the wood for the wires from the bottles to come up through, and then they can be connected at those terminals. It might seem a strange way of doing it. I'm not sure if this is what other people would do, but I've only got materials to hand. Obviously we're in lockdown, so we can't just go out and buy things, and you know, it works for me. It's simple, it's quite low profile, so when you view it from this direction here, you can barely see the wires, so you won't be able to see them from below the unit. And I can also put epoxy resin once I've made the joints and taken the individual bottle strings through the holes, and so I've done the joints here. I can then epoxy those, so it's going to be moisture resistant and secure, solid. So if someone were accidentally to pull on the bottle wire, it wouldn't actually rip it out of the main wiring. So that's the logic. So now it's time to put it all together. So all my little bottles are all connected up, and they're connected to this lamp. Here we go. Yay! So they all operate from the mains electricity. How cool is that? So just a little reminder that this is the little cap that's the remnants of the original light bulb, and this has some kind of reducer transformer built into it. So this is the reason why these bulbs can run from the mains electricity. Please don't think that these are running from 240 volts, because they're not. This is reducing the current down to about 3.4, 3.5 volts. And this is what's going to get glued into that wooden block that I showed you earlier on. There we go. A few blobs of araldite on there, just holding those wires into that wooden channel, and we'll come back when it's dried. So there we are, holes drilled in the wood for the bottle strings to come through. First bottle to go through the hole, I put a little bit of tape on the end, just so that the strings pull through together, and we'll place this in the hole in the bottom. There it comes. Okay, just focus on there. Pull that through, and that can come up, and then we'll just carefully push the rope part up through the hole. Now it is tight. I've done it for a reason. I want as much natural resistance on the ropes as possible, so they don't fall back down again. But I will just put a little blob of epoxy around the bottom of here, just to make sure it doesn't drop out. But there we go, that's through there. Might be another option. Maybe I could put a little cable. Think what I'll probably just do, thinking about it, is put a tiny little cable tie around there, pull it tight, and then it can't pull back through. So that's probably the best thing to do. But I think that should just hold it, so you get the idea. There we go, one first dangling bottle. There we are, all bar one, which I'm just doing a little bit of modification to. All the bottles and all the strings are in the wood. This is how I've done the wiring on the top. It might look a little bit strange, but the reason for these loops in the wire is, and also for this pinned over piece here, is in case I want to adjust the length of the rope. If I leave some loose wires here, or some extra wires there, then I can vary that rope length later on. And I haven't got any cable ties, and again we're in lockdown, so at the moment it's just temporarily pinned over with a little tiny nail there. So it's not the final thing, but that's works for the time being. And now we're going to carry on with the rest of the bottles. So everything's soldered and everything is epoxied. So I've just got a little battery pack connected to these wires here now, so we can just test one last test to make sure it all works. There we go. So they all work nicely. And so the epoxy is just drying on the wires themselves. Okay, so this is kind of the moment of truth. Obviously it's laid on the floor at the moment, it needs to be hung from the ceiling, but everything's connected up. I've just screwed this lamp socket to it. Obviously it's going to be hanging from the ceiling, not with this on. This is just to test it. Switch in hand. Let's see if the bulbs light up from the mains electricity whilst all attached to the wood. Here we go. Hey! It works.
There you go.
Fantastic. So now what we're going to do is suspend it from the ceiling. Got it hung up on the ceiling now. It wasn't much of a process to do the hanging. It was just literally some lengths of rope and then some hooks in the ceiling. Just measured to, it was 44 centimeters from the top of the hook to the wood itself. So just measured both sides, nothing too complicated. The light fitting is one of those sort of IKEA type ones that has a stretch, so we can deal with that later on. It's just pinned up out of the way for the moment. But now you get to see here how the bottles look hanging above the table. And the moment of truth. Let's see what they look like when they're switched on. There we go. So, rustic vintage bottles found during various mudlarking adventures on a piece of driftwood found on the beach in spring or late winter this year. I think that's pretty good. I hope you do too. Thanks for watching as always. I appreciate your likes and your comments and your subscriptions. Yes, there's been a few mistakes with this. I'm sure there'll be people saying, oh, you could have done this and you could have done that, but frankly this was just all in my head, and for a first time trial of a light fitting I'm fairly happy with this.